In this video, I'm going to go over 12 things that I liked enough to write down while reading various things over the years. I'll give you the quotes, how I interpret them, and why I wrote them down, if I can remember why I wrote them down. Some of this stuff I read a long time ago. The first quote I'm going to talk about is from a Gregory Benford story called The Hydrogen Wall. I remember reading this story once and not really thinking much of it. A few years later, I read it again, and it really struck me as a great story. Anyway, here's the quote. The conventional theory of human minds was that they were a kind of legislature, always making deals between different interests. Only by attaining a plurality could anyone make a decision. I have a very surface interpretation of this line. If you consider that your mind is like a government's decision-making body, think the US Congress or the UK Parliament or maybe the German Bundestag, you have the idea here. Nothing gets done until the various parts who want different things, make deals with each other to get something done. Once those deals are made, the whole can make a consensus vote, which leads the mind to a decision. For example, your stomach tells you that you're hungry. Part of your brain says, let's eat. Another part says, what should we eat? Another says, should we eat out or at home? Then you get the splinter groups arguing about where to eat if you want to go out to eat. You get the finance part piping up and asking, well, how much will it cost? Should we eat at home? And that's just deciding what and where to eat. Thousands of decisions are made every day by everyone alive. So there are a lot of these legislatures of the mind in action. I think I liked the line so much because I'd never thought of my brain in those terms before. It is many voices vying to get their own way. Go to the movies or watch a hockey game. Go to work or take the day off. Tell your kids they're going to hurt themselves or let them learn the lesson from the pain they're about to experience. Anyway, if you want to read The Hydrogen Wall, it's available in the October-November 2003 issue of Asimov's Science Fiction, if you can find a copy of that. An easier place to read it is David Hartwell's Year's Best SF, number 9. I read it in Asimov's first and then in that Year's Best SF the second time. The next 3 quotes are from a Dungeons & Dragons trilogy by Paul S. Kemp. He created a character named Erebus Kale, who is my second favorite character in the Dungeons & Dragons novels behind Drizzt Do'Urden. The first quote is from Twilight Falling, which is the first book in the Erebus Kale trilogy. If there was fate, then perhaps a man's future was not fixed. Perhaps a man could shape his fate through the choices he made. Fate delineated boundaries, choice established details. So fate might make a man a farmer, but the farmer chose what crops to plant. Fate might make a man a soldier, but the soldier chose which battles to fight. So that's the quote. What I know about philosophy would probably fit in a thimble, but this seems like an answer to a philosophical argument. If there's such a thing as fate or predetermination, do our choices even matter at all? This quote is saying that we absolutely have some impact on our own lives, even if there is some overarching destiny that we can't control. For example, we obviously don't decide when an accident happens to us. The accident creates boundaries that we have to accept in a part of our lives, but our choices after the accident have an impact and affect how heavily those boundaries will impact us. Our choices may seem small, like little things that go along with what has happened, but little things can add up until we have control again. I like this quote because sometimes life can become overwhelming and feel like it's spiraling out of control. This says that even when you feel like that, taking hold of the small things may give you enough sense of control to help you overcome whatever difficulties you're dealing with. This doesn't mean the minutiae of life, I don't think. It's more about the easier tasks related to whatever is causing the spiral. If you can handle the smaller tasks, maybe the bigger ones suddenly become less daunting. The next quote is from Dawn of Night, the second book in the Erebus Kale trilogy. It's actually a couple quotes that are snippets of longer lines. The first part is this: relentlessness in moderation is dedication. Arrogance in moderation is self-confidence. In other words, the right amount of drive is called dedication, and dedication is a good thing to have. It leads to discipline, which causes you to show up every time, whether you want to or not. You're there to make progress, even if it's just one small step on a journey of 1,000 miles. Just showing up often leads to self-confidence because the dedicated individual develops competence. Then that competence provides a true sense of self-worth that comes across as confidence. But note the word moderation there. Failure to moderate leads to the second part of this tandem. All things, when taken too far, become self-destructive and lead to failure. In other words, too much relentlessness can morph your dedication into obsession. Obsession's unhealthy, and it can end in bad results or even complete failure. You can burn out if you get obsessed with anything. That burnout is self-destructive and causes you to abandon what you were in love with at the beginning. The lesson here is that even when you love something and are dedicated to progressing with it, you have to make sure that you're not so obsessed that you can't step away for a time if that's necessary. Obviously, this break will vary depending on how long you've worked on something, what's required to maintain the current state, and how important it is to anything else that you're involved in. This is one of the things I was concerned about when I started this YouTube channel. With all the demands of family life, with my wife, my kids, my pets, house upkeep, work to pay for everything, worry about aging parents and other extended family back home, et cetera, et cetera. I was worried I might become too obsessed with producing videos regularly and neglect other life responsibilities. Luckily, I haven't run into that issue yet. The final quote from the Heir of His Kale trilogy comes from Book 3, Midnight's Mask. The quote is, "Memories haunt even better than ghosts." This is a short but powerful statement. If you believe in ghosts, you might think they're scary and not ever want to run into one. Ghosts usually haunt a place in fiction and have to be purged by some act that frees them. Some fiction says ghosts don't haunt places, but they do haunt people. This quote is sort of a reflection of that. You live with the ghosts of things past in your head. They are there and sometimes pop up like a ghost jumping out at you. A memory of something you did as a teenager, a memory of some boyfriend or girlfriend that you didn't treat so nicely or didn't treat you very nicely, or the worst kind of memory, regrets for things that you didn't do, chances that you didn't take. These can haunt you a long time. I had one of these ghosts in my head for a long time. When I was in the Air Force, some friends and I went out to eat at a local restaurant in Oklahoma. The waitress took our drink order, and when she returned, she sat down across from me and talked to us for what seemed like 10 minutes. When she left, one of my friends, who was female, said, "Wow, she really likes you." And I'd gotten the same vibe and thought the waitress was cute, but unfortunately I couldn't remember what she'd said her name was. I felt too embarrassed to ask her, so I didn't get her number, and I never saw her again. That failure to act was a ghost that haunted me for a long time. I wondered what might have been from time to time, but then I met my wife years later and never thought about it again unless something like creating this video called it to mind. Don't let the ghosts in your head haunt you too long. Live for today, plan for tomorrow, and compartmentalize the things in your past appropriately. The next couple quotes come from Star Wars novels. The first is from Outbound Flight by Timothy Zahn. I'm going to use the shortened names of the Chiss officers because I don't want to butcher their true Chiss names. If I remember correctly, one of Thrawn's colleagues named Thras says this to Thrawn: "The morality of an action is not determined by the results." I think this is a more absolute way of saying the end does not necessarily justify the means. Imagine the police stopping a bank robber by killing the thieves, but also they killed the bank's employees and the customers in the process. The robbery was stopped, so the intended end was accomplished. However, the means wasn't justified because unnecessary death was also part of the result. There was probably a better solution. The next quote is from The Cestus Deception by Stephen Barnes. It's some wisdom from the greatest Jedi Master and best lightsaber fighter in Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Quick aside, go ahead and disagree in the comments all you want. I haven't read all the Star Wars stuff, so there might be someone else out there that's better than Kenobi. Anyway, here's the quote. "The joy in life comes not from surpassing another's gifts, but in fully manifesting our own." Obi-Wan is basically saying, stop trying to keep up with the Joneses, stop comparing yourself to others, and focus on you. The person you're comparing yourself to probably doesn't know or care that you think you're in competition with him or her. Instead of following that dead end, work on yourself and improve yourself, whether that's in your relationships, your work, your hobbies, your business, etc. Use the dedication I talked about in the Heir of His Kale quotes to make your life better. Before you know it, that person you thought you were competing with may express admiration that you weren't even expecting. Even if they don't, you'll have improved yourself at least a little bit, and outside praise won't matter at all. A quote similar to this is from a book by Minister Faust called From the Notebooks of Dr. Brain, which you may also find under the title Shrinking the Heroes. The premise of the book is that the psychiatrist for a team of superheroes is writing a book based on them, exploring the various fears and quirks of the team. And here's the quote. "If you continue developing your own abilities and doing what fulfills you without anxiety over other people's judgment, eventually even those who despise you shall be constrained to honor you. It's a paradox, but only by abolishing your craving for your critics' respect will you ever achieve it. If you're any kind of creator or artist or athlete, don't try to please the critics out of the gate. Don't let their judgment affect you as you hone your art and abilities. In other words, don't do what you do expecting acceptance right away. If you work and refine your art, your output, your whatever, you will eventually win over your critics. Even if they don't like you, they'll at least have to respect your effort. The next quote is by Francis Bacon. My notes say it's from something he wrote called The Advancement of Learning. I don't have a copy of that, so I'm not sure where I saw this, but here's the quote. The monuments of learning are more durable than the monuments of power. I'm sure there are deeper philosophical things in this than what I can see. I think it's just saying that knowledge and literature will always outlive the things men build to display their strength. Many castles around the world were one of the greatest examples of a leader's strength in that area. Today, many of them are crumbling, yet the knowledge and literature that was discovered or created at that time is still with us, often as the foundation of even more knowledge and works. This quote feels like a cousin to the pen is mightier than the sword. The next quote is from a Harlan Ellison story called Lonely Ache. I first read this in a collection called Alone Against Tomorrow, and it's also available in the collections I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream and The Essential Ellison. This is a really long quote. Simply the mechanics of divorce were gristmill enough to powder him into the finest ash. Simply the little pains of walking through the apartment where they had bumped into one another constantly, the lawyer talks, the serving of the papers, the phone calls that lacked any slightest tinge of communication, the recrimination, and worst of all, the steady deteriorating knowledge that somehow what had gone wrong was not real, but a matter of thoughts, attitudes, dreams, ghosts, vapors, all insubstantial, but so omnipresent, so real, they had broken up his marriage with Georgette, as if they were substantial, rock hard, real, physically tearing her from his arms and his thoughts and his life. Phantom raiders from both of their minds, whose sole purpose in life was to shrivel and shred and shatter their union. But the thoughts and vapors and gray images persisted, and he existed alone in the 1.5 where they had set up their gestalt, while she rattled the knuckle bones and murmured the incantations and boiled up the mystic brews, all set down precisely in the grimoire of divorce. And as the pattern of separation progressed, a boulder racing mindlessly downhill, needing only the most impossible strength imaginable to halt its crushing rush, his life set itself up in a new sequence, apart from her, yet totally motivated by her existence and the reality of her absence. I've never been divorced, so I don't have any direct experience of this from a marriage perspective. I do know what it's like when what seemed like a long-term relationship at the time ended. I recall having similar thoughts to that last part about setting up life in a new sequence, driven by the ex-girlfriend despite her absence. Anyway, this passage hit me as a near-perfect embodiment of what a marriage that ended when people stopped talking or couldn't find common ground. It just seems like that's what it would feel like. Divorce could make you feel like the universe is out to get you, make you so depressed you think you're nothing. However, we go back to From the Notebooks of Dr. Brain for a quote stomping on that theory. After all, if someone is actually orchestrating the chaos of the universe against you personally, then you do matter. When no one seems to care anymore, at least enemies give you the comforting illusion that you count. On the surface, this quote is saying that anyone that believes they don't matter, yet also believes the universe is out to get them, can't have it both ways. If a mind-bogglingly large universe actually cared enough to be out to get you, you must matter for something. Enemies wanting to take you out would be ample evidence that you matter to some degree to someone. The last quote from the Minister Faust book is, "You don't need proof or evidence to burn down a man's soul. All you need is accusation." I think this is basically saying most people are destroyed by accusations, even if they aren't true. Think about actors, athletes, businessmen that have been harmed by accusations of wrongdoing that ended their careers. This can happen to people for whom a major part of their life is tied up in their profession. The immediate news cycle and rumor mill that is the internet nowadays can really hurt someone before they even become aware of the accusation. If the target can't handle the pressure, it can damage their soul in ways that others wouldn't understand. I hope you enjoyed these quotes and my thoughts on them. As always, please add your relevant thoughts in the comments, and if you add a quote, please say where it comes from in case anyone reading it wants to check out the context. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Until next time, I hope you find something inspiring in your next read. Bye for now.